everyone, Joe here from ActionX. Welcome to What's in the Tube, where it's Action Show, where we review all things in the world of television, which is normally episode by episode review of currently on air shows, season by season reviews of long into the air shows or shows that have wrapped up, or doing these quick impressions, which normally it could be me watching a brand new show for the first time or rewatching an old show from my childhood and kind of giving my thoughts on it. It's not a proper review, it's more of like just what I thought of it. That's it. No spoilers, nothing new, mostly my memories with it. And today we're doing Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. I distinctly remember that show being, I think, one of the most goofiest and funnest shows. I don't know if I know funnest is not even a word, but in my vocabulary it is. It's one of the most treasured shows that I've watched. I mean, I don't know. Also, yeah, I have it right here. I'm gonna get it in a second. But so when I was a kid, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends came out, I believe, in 2005. So yeah, that was around me in third grade. And when cartoons come out about for kids, like literally, if it's like 90% of the shows that Cartoon Network airs, I mostly watch. And so when Foster's Home came out, I remember the big, like the premiere movie. I'm pretty sure I was there from the first time it came out, and then I was there on the last time it came out, from the beginning to the end. Similar to a lot of other shows I've watched when I was a kid, I was just ironically there, and I stuck through for the entire run. It's not a story-driven show. It isn't. I do want to say that there are moments where the show it gets serious at times, and they did a spin on it. They did a spin on it where the premise for Foster's Homes is in this reality, we always akin to the term even in our world about imaginary friends. So while for us we can see our imaginary friends, we no one else can really see it. You kind of have to go along with it. In this universe, yes, the kids are able to kind of imagine them whenever they want, and normally it's just a companion that they need in the moment. And then when you get a little bit later in life, it kind of becomes apparent that they don't really need them anymore. Like their main reason has kind of wrapped up, and then eventually, well, where do they go? I mean, there was a point where like, well, we can't keep them because there's no point in keeping them. So they kind of have to leave because, they still need to eat. And it's kind of how like you have a pet. And imaginary friends are not described as pets, but they are kind of akin to it where it is a responsibility to take care of them. It's an additional thing. And unlike pets where like, well, once you adopt them, morally you have to keep them till, the day they die. What an imaginary friend, for most people, it says, okay, their usefulness for the purpose of them being in the house is over. So we kind of really don't need you anymore. So where do they go? And that's when this back then a young lady, now an old lady in the show, Madam Foster, opened up her home, eventually expanding to have any sort of abandoned imaginary friend come over here, live with them for free, no strings attached. And the only condition is that when a kid does want to come over to adopt an imaginary friend, they're just willing to be there. And like, there you go. You go to their house and you stay there for X amount of time until needed. And one of the things that's kind of, I think I would like to say they had inspiration from a bit is Toy Story in a sense. I want to also say they had a little bit of, I just thought of the property and it literally blanked out in my brain. Or it also just like in the real world, like, there is, a lot of, in the orphanage, the adoption system for orphanages, there are a lot of babies out there. I've met people that, being honest here, totally transparent, that I've dated before, or morally went on dates with, and they were honest with me, like, yeah, I would prefer to adopt because there's a lot of kids out there, a lot of babies who are already in our world, but they don't have parents to take care of them. What would the point being of me bringing another child in the world when there's another kid that could need my money and resources and my caregiving to take care of? It is a very valid reason. Although my only difficulty with getting that understanding in the Foster's world is that, well, kids can always just imagine them, so it's not really like, I mean, I guess you could say like it's another overpopulation issue, and that ironically comes into play in a later season where they kind of like make that of a question, like what happens if you get someone that has an overactive imagination? But that's, of course, I'm getting into spoilers there. I won't spoil anything about that. But when it came to this show, I didn't really understand it. To be honest, they didn't really brought it up that much, so I just left it alone and just like, you know what, that's kind of their thing, that's what they're doing. But I do get it, like, yeah, maybe kids just don't want to, or they just don't have an imagination, which can be an insult to some, but I guess that's another valid theory about our society and about our world. So when they so on in this show, like, so when Foster's Homes gets created, like, obviously, like, I'm a really big financial guy. Like, I like talking about finances. I love talking about, like, another thing that kind of like intrigued me is like, who the hell is affording all this? Like, Madam Foster doesn't have an income, so it's like, how do you pay them, especially having her granddaughter, grandniece on staff as a worker who gets paid to do this. I'm like, where's all this money coming from? This is one of the unique things. But back to the point of the story, I don't know why I'm deviating so much. The story premise is that there's a kid named screw it, I give up. I'm taking out the phone calls. There's a kid named Mac, and he creates his foster's home. His imaginary friend called Blue. So they were best pals, but Mac had a brother who always tormented him, and I would say, like, the premise of the show kind of is a little murky, since I forgot how old they had Mac in the series. I think it was 11 or 10, 11 to 12, around there, so about to be a teenager. And so it was like, you're kind of getting old for, like, this imaginary friend stuff. Maybe it's time for you to kind of grow up and kind of start moving on from him. And obviously, when you're a kid, what your parents say are the rules. You really can't argue with them. So when they say no, it means no. So when Blue had to go, it was like, that's kind of unfair to him. And then it's also like another asshole thing about parents. It's like, I don't care what you do, I just don't want it in my house. It's a waste of food, it's a waste of money. It definitely does suck, but honestly, again, parents are in the right there. I mean, I'm not a parent, I'm vaguely an adult, but I do understand, like, yeah, I can understand why they don't want to have an imaginary friend. It just costs way too much money to have one. It does, and thankfully, when they discover Foster's Home and they kind of go there, but one of the tricky circumstances is that, well, the only requirement to live there is you have to be willing to get adopted. Where it's like, yeah, everything's for free: food, shelter, water, everything that's in the house, it's for free. There is absolutely nothing you can't do. The only thing is that you gotta get adopted. Like, if a kid wants to and the paperwork is signed, you're good to go. Which is the only condition that they have, because obviously they can't afford for Blue to live somewhere else. The whole point of him is like for Blue not to be a financial waste on the family anymore. So they were like, well, Mac's not really ready to move on from him, so it's like, I still want him. It's just, I'm trying to find a loophole so that I can keep him happy and I keep my mom happy. And that was the whole premise of the first movie, where, well, the first 3 episodes compiled into like a mini movie. That was the whole goal, and they played a lot with it. I would have said that if Foster's Home was just a pilot or just a standalone movie, I think the what they did in the first 3 felt like a very complete story. They're like, yeah, you can assume they go on more adventures and they'll have a lot of fun at the house, and you're kind of left wondering what could be next. And that was the thing that I was very fascinated with, and thankfully they were like, no, yeah, we're making a show about it, and it was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I can't wait to see it, and it was freaking cool. Again, I'm not trying. It's a comedy show. It's a sitcom. Not really. It's like an animated show where it's like every week is something totally new. It's something totally different. And the one thing that I will say is that, with most cartoons, like, most of the characters' personalities tend to change from episode 1 all the way as you get along in the cartoon, because when a cartoon is like, there's only so much you can do with, like, this take of the character. Let's change him up a little bit just so you can, like, make it a little bit more easier to write scripts and develop, subplots for episodes. One thing that I noted was that Blue became a very, I don't know how to say it. It's more like Blue became what he is, as like just he is carefree, but he is very understanding compared to the Blue in the show. Well, in the remaining run of the series, he becomes more of an asshole, selfish, doesn't really care. And I guess that's just the impressionable nature of him, and that's something that I kind of got akin to, where it's like, I love those characters that, like, they think they can do whatever they want and nothing can happen, and then the moment they do get like a little bit of come up, it's like, yeah, I like that. It's sort of like on the Looney Tunes show, which I'm actually surprised. I never done a video about the Looney Tunes show. That's got to be fixed at some point in the future. Similar to like what Daffy Duck does in that show. Like whenever he does become an asshole and he gets what he wants, I hate those moments because he doesn't deserve them. And then when you get to the moment where he gets his ass whooped or he just gets a little bit of a comeuppance, I'm very happy about it. That's sort of how Foster's Homes is. And so to speak, like Foster's Home did not last too long. I think it only lasted for like a good 3 or 4 years, which isn't that much in the world of animation, to be honest. Actually, I think I started in '04, not '05. I don't know why I started '05, but it could be '04 or '05. It was a very short time span for Cartoon Network cartoon. And that was mostly when you were getting to the era where, like, okay, we are getting a lot of cartoons, but they're kind of wrapping up quickly. You're getting a lot of episodes in the time frame it's releasing, but you're not entirely getting a full run like I think Codename Kindred Store that lasted for like 6-7 years. This wasn't really in that ballpark, but it was still a good show, and I was really happy that also they announced Funko Pops for it. I'm like, fuck yeah! I mean, I love Foster's Home. Like if they release them on their wave, I'll buy them all. Like I'll buy them all. I really don't care. But one of the things I did take away from Foster's at the end of the day is that I don't think it's mostly a show where like creativity runs wild, where it's an imaginary friend, so like it doesn't even have to make sense. These characters design, like you can make whatever the hell you want. It's like a kid designed it. Kids do not have a sense of like design in mind, so it's like whatever you want to do, and it was very creative at times. They definitely made it work. I want to say they kind of pushed themselves a little bit because here's an honest truth about me with cartoons. I normally will try my best to watch everything, but if I know if it's an episode that I very much do not enjoy or I felt no comedic value of it, then I will not watch it. And that sucks because I'm aware that like, yeah, people worked on it. There was a lot of people that put a lot of effort into that episode, but for me, like, it just doesn't hit. And that's most animated shows. You're going to eventually get to a point where like, okay, you make too many episodes. There's going to be some where for a fan, they have no interest in watching and they skip over to the next one. I can safely say, like, this is what me with most animated shows is that normally the first few seasons, I will watch everything of it. That's usually, like, when the creator is involved the most because he's, he or she is, like, very into the show, and then they're going to try their best to keep the same quality. Then it becomes stereotypical, okay, it's a machine, we're going to keep making episodes. There's a system, there's a formula, so I don't really need to be there on set. I trust the writers to kind of keep the spirit going in my absence while I work on something else. It has happened. It really does. It really has happened, and I think Foster's never had much moments like that. I think I did still stuck around for a majority of the run, but there was just like a couple of things where like, yeah, I didn't like this episode. I will mention there was one episode in the last season called the Jack and Cones episode. And I think that was really hilarious. I love Jackie Cohn so much. He's voiced by Phil Lamar. And I would honestly love to see a spinoff with that character. I really did. I really, really would. But, and also speaking of characters, the core cast, like you get 7 to 8 of them. It's Mac and Blue. It's their 3 core imaginary friends, Will, Iguado, and Coco. You have the chairman of the board, Mr. Harriman. You have the only worker on staff, Frankie, and then you have Matt and Foster. And between those 8, like they really keep the show going, and they really they do their best to kind of keep everything running and keep everything going. And every one of them has their own unique personalities, and it suddenly becomes a little repetitive. Like, okay, Frankie does not like her job, or Mr. Harriman's always an asshole, and he kind of reminds me of someone I know right now. Blue is just a dick. Will is the helpful one, but he's very, very used a lot because of that. Eduardo is the crybaby, and Coco is just the cool one. That suddenly, if she wants to do something cool for the scene, she just pops an egg, which makes really no sense. And the anatomy of it, they did briefly joke with the anatomy of Coco as a character, and even the explanation they gave was like, no, the explanation is just gives us more questions than answers, so doesn't really do much. It really doesn't. There was one character I do have to mention. I really do, because one of my really good friends, she watches the show, not with me, but like we watch like at similar points at times. And she was like a very big fan of this one character. I think he shows up at the end of season one, or I think and almost the closer of season one, called Cheese. I kid you not, Cheese is probably the most freaking annoying character in all cartoon history. And there's a lot of annoying characters in cartoon history, but for me, he easily takes the cake. I very much find him very annoying. It is the purpose of the character to find annoyance for everyone to have. I do get the point. I will say again, like his moments in the show when we do see him are very funny. I will give it that, but there are moments where I just want to strangle him and like put him in like a barrel with a hole on top so that at least he can breathe but not be around anyone. That's how far I went with that character. But keep in mind that the world of imaginary friends for Foster's Home, there's limitless potential for ideas and creativity. And I was pretty bummed that they didn't continue onwards because like yeah, it's an imaginary friend show. I mean, you literally could do whatever you want and it would make sense in the continuity of things. But they didn't. They didn't continue. They ended it. I don't know if it was a ratings things or just it was just time to like, kind of like let cartoons kind of come and go quicker. I really couldn't tell you to be honest with you. But if they were able to make another Foster's Home series, I wouldn't be mind to it. HBO Max again opens a whole new web of possibilities for shows to come back and do new runs. I would be very happy to. But this isn't a story thing where it's like, yeah, you want to see where the story goes next. It isn't. The ending of the show is like, it's the same thing like the movies. Like, you can speculate what happens next. And that's enough for you to live with. And it's been more than a decade since it wrapped. So, I would like to see it again. I would. The main show, I really enjoyed it so damn much. It was just a treat. It's just a fun guilty pleasure. It's just fun. It has nothing. I don't have to pay attention to a story, pay attention to the character development. It was just a fun little cartoon. It really was. And I will say there are a lot of episodes I wish I could talk about, but that's the whole thing about Quick Comparison. I want you to get teased enough to watch the show, and hopefully you will understand what I mean by this moment or that moment or like seeing this episode. It was just it's a treat for my childhood. It really is. I really thank it a lot for like helping me, not really like just helping me calm down a little bit. Ending elementary school was a bit stressful. There was a lot going on, but I was very thankful that it kept me sane a little bit. It kept me sane a little bit. I'll give it that. I do have the Iguana Funko Pop, but it's so far. I already stood up once. I don't want to stand up again unless I'm going to end this up. But for me, in my closing thoughts for Foster Home, coming back to it after all these years, it's still there. The energy's still there. The charm is still there. There's a lot of quotable moments. There's a lot of memorable moments. There are moments where like yeah, it's a cartoon. You kind of like it drags a bit. You get through it. You go to the next episode that kind of interests you, and then you leave it there. I would hope they would have made more. They never did. So I'm like, there's a reason, but I'm not going to complain about a show that ended so long ago. As long as you provide me more Funko Pops, that's all I care about. But yeah, I still enjoyed Foster's Home after all these years as an adult. I would hope to God someday when I have my own kids, I'll show them this show as like one of those weird background shows where like, you don't have to pay attention to it. You really don't. It's just, you get the funny moments, you get the colorful characters. It literally is colorful characters. And then you progress in your story. So yeah, that's all I really have to say about Foster's Home. Again, when it comes to cartoons, it's very tricky to talk about it without going a little bit more into detail. All I can say is that go watch it. It's on HBO Max. It's a fun 3-season binge. It's just a fun. If anything, it's a nice background noise to like just see what stupidity Blue can get the freaking helm into this week, and wonder why the hell did we accept this deal in the first place to keep this freaking Blue imaginary friend. Oh god. But yeah. So let me know in the comments below. Did you watch Foster's Home? Did you grow up with it? Let me know in the comments below. I would like to talk to you about that. But until then, I think that's going to do it for me today, everyone. So if you're unaware, this has been What's the Two from ActionX. I'm talking about my memories and quick impressions about Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. If you want to see more of us on ActionX, please subscribe to us on youtube.com/ActionX videos. Ring that bell for notification when our next episode reviews live, which normally would be Rookie and Walker. We also do Let's Show Talk as well. We also have another channel called The Collection Compass. Please also subscribe to us. Please also like, favorite, share. Please also follow us on social media. Ring that bell for notification when our next video is live. But until then, until we see each other the next time around, Stay safe out there. Be good to each other. And as always, peace out.